It is 2 in the afternoon at a tech company in San Francisco, and a product manager is hunched over his laptop, aggressively typing with one hand while shoving a wilted desk salad into his mouth with the other. His inbox has 147 unread emails, 3 Slack channels are blinking red, and he has not looked up from his screen in 6 hours. He tells himself he's being productive, but his brain stopped producing quality work 3 hours ago. His cortisol is spiking, his focus is destroyed, and every decision he makes right now is worse than the one he made this morning. But he cannot stop because American work culture has convinced him that resting is losing. Now contrast this with a completely different scene. It is 2 in the afternoon at a tech company in Stockholm, and the entire office stands up, walks away from their computers, and heads to the break room. No one checks their phone, no one talks about work, and no one feels guilty because this is Fika, and Fika is not optional. For the next 20 minutes, Swedish professionals sit down, drink coffee, eat pastries, and completely detach from every single task they were working on. And here is the shocking part. Sweden has one of the highest productivity rates per hour worked in the entire world, despite working significantly fewer total hours than Americans. Their economy is thriving, their workers report extremely low burnout rates, and their cognitive performance stays sharp throughout the entire workday because they have structured mandatory rest into their culture, and they treat it with the same seriousness Americans treat deadlines. Welcome back. Let us start with the core problem that is destroying American workers right now. The problem is not that people are working too hard. The problem is that people believe suffering equals productivity, and that belief is a biological disaster. Modern work culture operates on a fundamentally broken assumption. The assumption is that the more hours you work without breaks, the more output you will generate. But here is what actually happens in your brain when you refuse to stop working. After about 90 minutes of focused cognitive work, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, problem-solving, and impulse control, begins to fatigue. Your cortisol levels, which should spike temporarily during stress and then drop during recovery, stay chronically elevated because you never give your nervous system a chance to reset. Your ability to process new information deteriorates, your creativity shuts down, and your error rate skyrockets, but you keep working because you think pushing through exhaustion is what discipline looks like. It is not discipline. It is self-sabotage. And the worst part is that you are not even aware that your cognitive performance has collapsed because decision-making fatigue makes you unable to recognize that your decisions are getting worse. This is why people who work 12-hour days without breaks make catastrophic mistakes in the final hours that they would never make in the first 2 hours. This is why executives who pride themselves on never taking lunch make terrible strategic decisions in the afternoon. And this is why burnout is not just emotional exhaustion, it is literal brain damage caused by chronic stress hormones destroying your hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for memory and learning. Now here is where Sweden figured out something that America refuses to accept. Your brain does not optimize performance by working harder. It optimizes performance by alternating between intense focus and complete disengagement. And the mechanism behind this is something neuroscientists call the default mode network, or DMN, the default mode. Network is a specific network of brain regions that only activates when you stop focusing on external tasks. It does not turn on when you're working, scrolling, or even passively watching something. It only activates during genuine rest, meaning you are physically still, mentally disengaged from tasks, and not consuming information. And when the DMN activates, your brain does 3 absolutely critical things. First, it consolidates information. Everything you learned and experienced during your focused work gets processed, organized, and stored into long-term memory, which means if you never stop working, you never actually internalize what you learned, and you will forget most of it. Second, it replenishes willpower and decision-making capacity. Your prefrontal cortex needs glucose and oxygen to function, and it only restocks during rest, which means every decision you make without taking breaks depletes a resource that does not refill until you stop. Third, it generates creative insights and solutions to problems you were stuck on. This is why your best ideas come in the shower, during walks, or right before you fall asleep, because your conscious mind stopped trying to force a solution, and your DMN took over and solved it for you. Now here is the key insight that defines Fika. The default mode network does not activate if you are still half working. It does not activate if you take a break but scroll through emails on your phone. It does not activate if you eat lunch at your desk while watching a webinar. It only activates during complete, unapologetic disengagement, and this is exactly what Fika enforces. Fika is a mandatory coffee break that occurs twice per day in Swedish workplaces, typically mid-morning and mid-afternoon. During Fika, you stop working. You physically leave your workspace. You sit down with colleagues, and you do nothing related to your job for 15 to 20 minutes. You drink coffee, you eat something, you talk about life, hobbies, or nothing at all, and you do not feel guilty because everyone else is doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. And the rule is sacred. You do not talk about work during Fika. You do not check your email during Fika. You do not bring your laptop to Fika. Fika is a biological reset button, and Swedish culture treats it as non-negotiable because they understand that rest is not a reward for hard work. It is the mechanism that makes hard work effective. Now let me show you the economic proof that this works. Sweden ranks among the top 10 countries in the world for GDP per hour worked. That means Swedish workers generate more economic value per hour than American workers, despite working an average of 300 fewer hours per year. They are not working harder, they are working smarter, because their brains are optimized through structured rest. American workers, on the other hand, work longer hours but produce less per hour because chronic fatigue destroys cognitive efficiency. You can work 14 hours, produce the same output as someone who worked 6 highly focused, well-rested hours, and you will feel more exhausted while doing it. This is not a moral argument about work-life balance. This is a biological fact about how the human brain functions. So here's how you implement a non-negotiable Fika boundary in your own life, even if your workplace does not have this culture. First, establish a strict no screens rule during your break. This means no phone, no laptop, no email, no Slack, no scrolling, no watching videos, nothing. Your DMN will not activate if your brain is still processing external information, which means a break where you scroll Instagram is not a break, it is just a different form of cognitive load. If you want your brain to reset, you need genuine stillness, and that means putting your devices in a drawer or leaving them at your desk. Second, enforce physical separation from your workspace. Do not take your break at your desk. Do not stay in the same room where you work. Your environment is a psychological cue, and if you stay in your workspace, your brain will stay in work mode even if you are not actively working. Go outside, go to a different room, sit in a completely different space, and let your nervous system register that you're no longer in task mode. Third, eliminate the guilt. This is the hardest part for Americans because we have been culturally conditioned to believe that resting is lazy, unproductive, or selfish. But the science is unambiguous. Rest is not the opposite of productivity. Rest is the foundation of productivity. If you do not rest, your brain cannot consolidate learning, replenish decision-making capacity, or generate creative solutions, which means you are working harder to produce worse results. Taking a real break is not indulgence, it is optimization. And if you feel guilty about it, you're operating on outdated beliefs that are actively harming your performance. So here is what I want you to do this week. Pick one time slot per day, ideally mid-morning or mid-afternoon, and block off 15 to 20 minutes for a non-negotiable Fika break. Set a recurring calendar event, tell your team you will be unavailable during that time, and treat it with the same respect you treat a client meeting. During that break, leave your workspace, put your devices away, and do nothing work-related. Drink coffee, eat something, go for a walk, sit in silence, talk to a colleague about something other than work, whatever you want, but make it completely disconnected from tasks. Do this every single day for 2 weeks, and track how you feel at the end of each workday. You will notice that your focus improves, your decision quality gets sharper, your stress drops, and you finish your work faster because your brain is actually functioning at full capacity instead of limping through the day on fumes. If this changed how you think about rest and productivity, leave a like. And if you know someone who eats lunch at their desk and brags about never taking breaks, send them this video because they are burning out their brain for no reason. I will see you in the next one.